Hello, I am Sam Harvey from the Center for Career and Professional Development, and this is Coffee and Conversations. So, you've applied for your positions, you've interviewed, and you got the job offer, and you've accepted it. Congratulations. Today, we're going to talk about what you can do during that first week to really set a foundation for your success. So logistically for your first day, bring your documents with you. So like legal documents with you, be prepared to fill out your W-4s, I-9s, and have them kind of take those photos of your IDs because HR will really end up needing those. You'll also end up taking time during this week to take your ID photo, so be ready for that. But outside of those logistical needs and also, the little step of updating some of your social media, employment information, I want to talk today about some things you can do that will really allow you to take advantage of this short period in which you get to be the new person in the office to really lay the foundations for the rest of your time in this position. So we're going to start out by first impressions. So on your first day, you're probably going to be a little bit nervous. Have a few things planned out ahead of time. Make sure you're taking some time to breathe and some breaks throughout the day and get yourself ready to go. When you're dressing, dress confidently. It could be your favorite pair of pants, a jacket that makes you look badass. Wear something that's going to make you feel great and comfortable as you're kind of negotiating what is sometimes an uncomfortable new transition just because you're walking into a space where you're like, I don't know anything about this except for what you kind of probably told me a little bit about in the interview. Once more, as we always say, make sure it's appropriate for the job that you're doing. So if you've been to the interview, you have an idea of the types of outfits people wear. So if it's a place that's a jeans and a t-shirt place, you don't need to show up in a full suit. But you still maybe wear, once more, your nice jeans, your nice t-shirt. Know what you're going to be doing throughout the day. If your job includes moving equipment, dress so that you can move equipment so that you're not like sweating through a button up because you have to set up a stage somewhere or because you're hanging work in a gallery. So once more, make sure it's appropriate to the job that you're doing, but make sure it looks nice and it makes you feel really confident to be in it. Because you also don't want to wear like, oh, I just got this new blouse and I'm not really necessarily sure about it. And oh, turns out it's a little bit too tight, but I've already decided to wear it. You don't want to put yourself in that situation when you're already going to be dealing with a lot of new things going on around you. Plan your route ahead of time so that you know where you need to go and what time you need to leave. You definitely want to plan to arrive probably, well, I'll get there a little bit more, but plan the route so that you kind of know, like, I need to take this bus, I need to take these trains. If you know anything about the trains, sometimes they get a little bit behind schedule. So also knowing like what time are you going to need to leave to make sure you hit all the right stops. Are you going to need to find coffee or breakfast in the morning? Look for those potential routes along the way, just so you know how you're going to get where you need to get. Know the procedure for getting into the building. Do you need to go through security at all? Do you know where your boss's office is? Do you know your boss's name? All of these things will be really important so that you don't just show up and you're like, I don't know, I work here now? Question mark. So who you're meeting with, this is something that you can definitely talk to your boss about ahead of time. Just like, oh, where should I go when I get in? Do I need to go through security? Are they going to need to call you to come down until I get my ID settled up? Depending on the place, there may be an orientation that you've done at some point beforehand, which can be helpful for this, but a lot of jobs, it's just going to be like, cool, come on in at some point, and then you'll get there and you'll just kind of find the first person you can, and hopefully they can direct you, but know some of the names. And if you have an idea of where you're supposed to meet people, that can be very helpful. Make sure you arrive on time. When you're planning your start date, touch base with your boss about what time they actually want you to get there. They might not want you there first thing in the morning on your first day, but maybe rather an hour or so into the day so that they have a chance to get in the morning and kind of go through their routine before someone is there in front of them being like, hi, I don't know what I'm doing. They may also want you there first thing at the start of the day when they are, get to know when that is and touch base on what that time might mean. For some jobs, that's going to be 9 a.m., some it's 9:30, some it's 10, so kind of getting a feel for when you should be in the office, either based off the time other people are usually in the office or based off, hopefully, the time that you have been told by the person you're working with. Be there on the agreed time, but really only a few minutes early at most. You may still need to wait a little bit for your boss to get there and fully settle in. And it's always going to feel like a weird time to have to just sit in the waiting room a little bit while you're waiting to start your job, but that's super normal. Sometimes, especially if it's in the morning, people are kind of used to a specific routine. Maybe their subway was running late. So kind of giving people that space to get in so that you're not necessarily just there the first thing in the morning, unless that's what they told you to be doing. When you do meet with your boss and get settled in, make sure you kind of have a chance to talk to them about their priorities for you for the week. Is there anything they need you to know and learn? Is there any tasks they need you to complete by the end of the week? What are their expectations of the goals? You also should, throughout this week, have some other meetings with them. Set a regular check-in time to talk to your boss, either at the end of each day or in the mornings. Just a general time for you to ask questions, update them on what you're doing, and see if there's anything else that they're going to need from you. This can help set a tone for having regular check-ins with them throughout the rest of your time in this position. But it's also good so that you're not necessarily feeling like, oh, I need to hunt them down right at this moment, or that you're not always necessarily popping into their office with the quick questions that you have. You can kind of collect the quick questions or the non-emergency questions for that check-in. Those are also going to be good times to talk about the goals that they have even beyond this first week. What do they see getting done in the first month, first quarter, the first year in this position? It's a great time for you to also start to share with them what you're starting to see about the office and even immediate thoughts that you have. That can be a great way to even start to add value to yourself in the position really early on by showing, yes, I'm taking in information, I'm already coming up with new ideas on how things could potentially run better or be better. Your other main goal is going to be to get the lay of the land. So you want to figure out where everything is in this new space. See if your boss, a coworker, or if you're in a position where you're supervising people, if any of them can just give you a tour of the space. Even if it's a small open space office area, they can at least kind of give you that breakdown of who's where and where some of the things are, even if it's technically within visual range. It's always good to kind of get that lay of the land of oh yeah, that corner is where the sales people all sit. This is the corner where the tech people all sit, because those are people you will have to interface with at different times, so it's good to kind of know where they are. For a bigger space, you might not get the full every floor tour. They might be able to at least give you a slight overview, but you want to know things like, where are the bathrooms? Very important. Make sure you also take that time to go to the bathroom sometimes. Where are the break rooms? Where are the conference rooms? Where are sort of those places that you might need to use to be able to do your job fully? And if there's a cafeteria, you might want to know where that sort of is and to know where things are. And if not where, then what might be an option. So, for example, I had done an internship at Viacom, and there's some outdoor spaces there. So what outdoor spaces are usable? Is there, if you're in a sort of WeWork co-working situation, are there sort of little telephone booths? Are there places that are oh yeah, this is where people tend to hang out. Where's the kitchen? And they can even give you some small policies on things. So when they show you the break room and are yep, coffee, whatever, you can be oh cool, I see you have a coffee pot. What's the system with the coffee pot? Is it, okay, last person to finish it refills it? Cool. Do you have a quick breakdown of how to refill this for me? So once more, starting to get the lay of the land and doing what you can to figure out what the common sort of systems in place are, so that you're not kind of going in and just elbowing into things that people already have, just as far as established norms in the office. The same way you kind of have your patterns if you've ever had a roommate with them, that you're kind of okay, this is sort of the agreed upon way that we do this, whether it was actively agreed on or passively. Offices work in the same way. Along with knowing the sort of inside of the space, start to get to know the surrounding area. Figure out what some of the great lunch spots are, what are the great coffee spots. Ask your coworkers about the places that they like, and take some time to search around on Google and other sites and see what's recommended, and go out and wander during your lunch hour. Definitely take the time to start to figure out this new place so that you can kind of get your like, cool, this is my I need to be calm spot, or this is the place I'm going to take clients or guests when they come to the office because of this specific reason. But the more you start to do that, the more it'll feel like a comfortable space for you to be. And you'll kind of continually find new and interesting places to go as you get through and get more comfortable. But definitely taking that quick look can be great to also give you those moments of respite when you need to kind of just break away from sort of this, all the kind of overloading of information that will very likely be happening during this time period. Now, when it comes to your coworkers, take the initiative and introduce yourself. You don't need to do it first thing in the morning, and your boss or tour guide might also do this a little bit as well, kind of take you around to do the introductions. Take note of people's names and what they do, because they're definitely going to come up earlier or come up later. Definitely at least trying to put as many names as you can to faces. And this is, you can pace yourself on it, but definitely also the first time you run into someone, just kind of do the quick like, hi, I'm new here, I'll be working over here, and then give them the opening to introduce themselves. You might not actively end up working with everybody, but it will start to give you people a face to your name, and especially if later in the week you need to touch base. And depending on your position, they might be really excited that you're there and be like, oh, cool, we've been waiting for someone for this position. I have so many things to work with. We work closely together. It might be like someone you didn't necessarily think you might work with, but that because you've now made that introduction, it might open up the door for some later collaboration. If you forget someone's name, don't be afraid to ask for a refresher. The first weeks are universally a time of information just kind of being dumped on you pretty regularly, so you're bound to forget a few things, and this is a great time to kind of admit, like, I'm sorry, I've completely forgotten your name, can you please remind me of it? Because if you've been working there for a few weeks and then it happens, it's kind of one of those like, oh, I guess this person just isn't paying attention or like doesn't care and is a jerk, versus at the beginning it can be a very honest, like, yep, I just got like out of 5 different meetings and everyone is a blur right now sort of moment. It's super common for that you're going to forget something. Set up lunches to get a chance to talk to your new coworkers in a more casual setting. It's a great time to start to make connections, figure out more about the work environment, and get a feel for the dynamics of the company. It's also the time where you can find out about their backgrounds, which might come in handy, you know, in your like Slumdog Millionaire moment of like, oh yeah, I have a connecting story for that, or like, oh yeah, Joe would be awesome for that because of this background. Just kind of allows you to get a better understanding of the people around you. Within that, though, sometimes your coworkers, especially if they've been there for a bit, know what boundaries that they're happy to push. So you might go out to lunch and they'll be like, yeah, no, it's totally fine for us to take an hour and a half. That's totally chill. Do what you feel comfortable with. Don't necessarily push to like, well, it's my first week. If it's your first week, you want to be on time. You want to make sure your boss sees that you're putting in a lot of effort. So you don't necessarily want to take an hour and a half for lunch when it's an hour is the expected amount of time. So also be aware of things like that where you don't need to necessarily become your coworker's new best friend. You're just there to start to get to know a little bit more about them. Pay attention to your coworkers when they're in the company as well. What are the most successful people doing, and how do people, and even small things like how do people handle their doors? Are they mostly open? Do you see your coworkers popping into each other's spaces pretty regularly? Or does it seem to be more like pre-planned meetings that they're going for it? Are they meeting in their individual spaces or moving over to the meeting rooms to talk? Do people hang out in the break rooms? Are there certain times that happens? You'll start to get a feel for the norms of the office by watching the people around you, because not everything is going to be verbally said like, oh, this is how we do this thing. It's a lot of just picking up kind of what the norms are and finding how you fit into that new space. You also might end up getting invited out with your coworkers for drinks afterwards. For certain startups, having a Friday drink is kind of a pretty normal thing for them to do. Feel free to go do that. Enjoy. It's great to get to know your coworkers in new contexts, but also kind of know the boundaries. It's still a professional environment, so don't say something that you wouldn't want repeated in an email to your boss. Don't gossip about other people. Don't bad talk your past job. It can get, depending on the position, people that have been at a company for a while can often be the ones that are most down on the current company sometimes. So keeping a positive attitude throughout, especially it's your first week, you don't want people to be kind of pulling down your excitement about this new position. So you can always go, and then if you start to be like, okay, cool, I've done my socializing, you can duck out when you can. Once more, new coworkers don't need to be your new best friends. You do spend an extended amount of time with them throughout your week, and you'll find the ways in which you kind of mesh together and those friendships form. And there might be people that you do go out with really regularly, and then there'll be the people that you see at work and maybe you get a drink with every now and then when the group is going out. And you'll start to figure that out throughout the time period, but don't feel that you need to establish that during your first week. Pace yourself. It's probably the most important thing. You're going to get a lot of information this week, so make sure you take breaks and take some time to recharge yourself. So that could be taking a minute at your desk, going into that bathroom for a little bit, whether you have to go or not, just to do a little stretch, sit for a moment. It's a weird thing to go to after talking to the bathroom. Have some snacks like in your bag ready to go, because you don't necessarily know what the snack situation will be. If they're a fully stocked type place or if they don't really have anything, bring a water bottle so that you can stay hydrated throughout the day. A lot of the first week is going to be a lot of meetings, either you getting pulled into meetings for already established projects, or it'll be meetings specifically around helping you better understand your position and the needs of the company. So it can feel like a marathon sometimes. Take notes constantly. Make sure they'll be helpful, so don't just take notes to take notes, but the things like people's names, what they do, things you see that could be improved upon, interesting things people bring up. Taking those notes show that you're paying attention to people, and even if you don't look back on them ever, you're more likely to remember something because you wrote it down. It's also going to be great for just those process-heavy things that you're going through. You'll probably have a meeting with HR about if you need to fill out a timesheet, how your medical ends up working, all of these things, so those notes can help you keep track of just what's going on, what you did for the day. And I would take time at the end of each day to go back through some of the notes that you've taken to remind yourself of anything immediate you needed to do or anything you needed to do at home. And also potentially the next morning when you come in to re-review to see if there was anything you needed to follow up on. Ask questions. This is your time to be curious and to try and understand things to the best of your ability. If you don't know what or how of something, ask. Why do we do this way? The answer might be, I don't know, this is just how we do it. It might be, oh, here's a specific reason why we need to go through it this way. And that's a great thing for you to know. This is why it's also really good to schedule those check-ins with your boss, so you don't need to bother them all the time with the small questions that you might have. But this is even just asking questions to clarify kind of some of the goals that they want, clarify what potential other things they have tried in this area before, clarify any past that you weren't there to witness, or potential future, because that's a really great time to start to figure out, well, like, have you had any thoughts or ideas about this yet? Contribute as you can. They hired you for having a certain level of expertise. So remember that they want to hear from you. Give your input and let them see that they hired the right person. So this can be in small ways that you see throughout these meetings. This can be looking at those notes where you saw areas for improvement and bringing some of those up along the way. The quicker you can start to show that you're kind of returning on investment to them, the more excited they're going to be to continue to bring you in and pull you into more exciting projects. Especially the first 6 weeks of a job are often seen as sort of a training period and sort of a testing ground to make sure that things are going to work. So the sooner you can start to see, and also as you start to contribute, that will help you see how different dynamics work. So is your boss someone that wants you to talk in the middle of the meeting with brainstorming ideas, or are they someone that wants you to come to them afterwards to have a conversation? Is the group really collaborative, or are they ones that prefer to kind of go back to their desks, think on things for a little bit, and then come back later to share their ideas? So as you start to contribute, you'll start to see how they respond to this contribution, and then you can adjust as necessary. There's a really common myth in career world that you should stay later than your boss does. I personally don't believe in that as the best rule of thumb, but you also don't want to be the first one jetting out of the office. So if you're told it's 9 to 5 p.m. comes and you're like, cool, bye everybody, that's not going to look really great. So as a general rule, I say stay while you still have things to work on, but don't start something new at the end of the day just so that you appear that you're busy. So stay long enough, go over your notes, and make sure some of your coworkers are leaving. Once you kind of see the bulk of your coworkers are starting to head out, then that's about a good sense of that you can start to head out as well. It's not worth your time to stay if you're just going to kind of twiddle your thumbs around and kind of look around for what everybody else is doing. You can always also, as you're starting to get ready to head out, go in, check in with your boss if they're still there, and kind of ask, like, I'm going to start to head out. Is there anything else that you need from me today? Or if it's 20 minutes before the end of the day and you're kind of out of things to do, pop your head in and be like, I've completed all the things you needed for me today. Is there anything I can get started on for tomorrow? And that can just be at least setting yourself up a little bit for tomorrow. Don't finish the thing they were thinking for you to do tomorrow yet. But the same way where you definitely don't want to be the last person in the office, you don't necessarily want to be the last person in the office at the end of the day, because you don't necessarily have a lot of things to be working on. You have a lot of things to be learning. So take the time to read and take it in. And if that does end up for you, meaning that you are the last one there because you want to take the thorough time to read through everything and fully understand it before you go, that's fine. If you are not a person that synthesizes information that way, then once more, wait till the bulk of your coworkers are kind of heading out, and that's when you'll want to do. So really, for your first week, it's all about sort of setting these foundations down, letting you're connecting in with your coworkers so that you can start to solidify yourself as a member of their team, and showing your boss that you're willing to contribute and that you're going to make a really positive change in this organization. It's also about you just starting to lay the comfortable things that you're going to need to know in order to be doing your best at this position. If that's knowing where the best coffee is, because that's a really important part of your day, to knowing what times the people in IT prefer to meet, because you're going to need to meet with them pretty regularly based off the projects you're going to be working on. So starting to find out where those areas are, even if it seems like a weird question or a silly question, this is your chance to ask it, because you're the new person. You know nothing other than your expertise in the area they hired you for. How that's going to look at this company, that's your job to figure that out during your first week. If you have questions, as always, feel free to email me, and have a great day.